Welcome back. Book discussion and I guess analysis is technically what I titled these for Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. Tap your inner power and create your life's work. So, very briefly, uh, as you know, this channel is about mental health, and some of these books and topics don't always seem like they connect, but I can assure you this one does from the sense of feeling fulfillment and strength within your professional endeavors, especially if you're a creative person. I work with a lot of creative people, and it can be very hard to keep, frankly, good mental health when your number one focus and desire is creativity, specifically because it's a market that people don't earn a living in. A lot of our market is designed on earning a living with your skill set. So I think by reading this, you will have a better understanding of how you can fulfill that need, that part of you that desires and pushes for creativity. And I am a strong believer, and I do bring this up in my clinical work. But if you're creative and you don't have an outlet for creativity, you will become depressed. And I think this book is one of a couple options that I would recommend people to actually push back against that depression. Um, it's not going to fix like clinical depression necessarily, but it I think can help people bounce back if we can identify that creativity is important to you and you don't have creative space to operate within. Well, creating that's going to help, and there's a couple resources that will assist in doing that, and this is one of them. So there's another book in this series that I don't have with me right now. It's not in my office. It's called The War of Art, and I actually think it is the first book that you should read if you're interested in this book. I know I'm recommending this one, but I actually would say don't start with this. If what I'm saying sounds interesting, start with the book prior to this, which is called The War of Art. I think it's almost the exact same cover, different words, and then this symbol is a flower coming out of the ground. But we'll talk about that in a different video. It will be one that I talk about. So, Turning Pro. The basic idea of this book is what it means to turn pro or become a professional at your craft. And it has probably, it might be the best definition of a professional that I've ever heard. And I have, if you didn't tell right away, a lot of this book is dog-eared, and if you start to scroll through it, it's very marked up. A lot of things starred and underlined, so I'm not going to hit on all of it because that would actually take quite a while. You can see how this book is written. A lot of like short chapters. You could read it in a sitting, probably. You could probably get through this in about 2 hours. I don't think it's for that. I actually find it more useful to read in 1 or 2 or 3 chapter chunks, either to help assist in starting my morning, or if I'm in a creative slump, I'll maybe knock a couple chapters out and go from there. But point being, there's a lot to glean from it, and I think you can jump around a little bit. It is split into 3 parts that have focuses, but overall, it's the same general theme: becoming professional. The definition I alluded to is more or less like this. It is not a verbatim definition, but that the art of being a professional is to show up every day and do your job. And that's it. That's professional. But it's a weighted statement: do your job. Because what does that mean? It does mean that you do it with the expectations set before you. Now, this is not about going to work. We're focusing on you're wanting to be a writer, you're wanting to be a musician, you're wanting to be a creative person. What does it mean to be professional? It doesn't mean you have a record deal. It doesn't mean you have a publication deal. It doesn't mean your work is up at a gallery. What it means is that you show up and you create every day. That's what you do. So the idea there is, let's say from 9 a.m. to noon every day. I know depending on your work, that's not going to be the case, but maybe even from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. or from 9 p.m. to midnight. You find this time, and those are all 3-hour chunks. Doesn't really matter the amount of time. That's a common amount of time people will devote. Um, you do the work, and you sit down and you write, and that is what makes you professional. Is you do that all the time, and you're consistent. You show up to your creative space like it is your job, like it is your career. And I think that's the beauty of it, is once you've done that, you're professional. You're showing up to do the work. and you might not ever make it big, but you are giving space to the creative part within you, this thing that has been placed in you against your will in many ways. You just have a desire for it. A lot of us grow into our interests, but we don't always decide what we're interested in. We're just interested in doing it. Me, for instance, I absolutely love writing and I love music. Um, I occasionally partake in drawing. It doesn't really get me going the same way. I don't paint. I don't act. I love playing music and I love writing, writing stories specifically. Those are the things that I have to show up for in my life, and when I'm doing them consistently, I feel good. I feel better than when I'm not. And I think that's one thing to think of. If you haven't ever thought of this idea of being a professional in the way that I'm describing, but maybe you know that you want to work on your creative craft, attempt to do this. Set aside, and it doesn't need to be 3 hours, it can be an hour. Just set aside enough time that you can actually do the activity and work on the craft. So I don't recommend anyone doing less than 30 minutes, probably close to 90 if you can, every day for 1 or 2 weeks and see how different you feel. That would be my encouragement for anyone from this. Um, Man, there's so much to glean, and this is, yeah, this is one of those things where this video and me diving in could be 8, 9 minutes, or it could be like 80 minutes, depending on how I choose to dive into this. I'm not going to go crazy with it because I do think it's a book that everyone should read. I don't remember in the moment if libraries will have this. Um, I know not everyone has the money to spend on books. Um, there are PDF versions of this or summarized versions of this, so look into them if you want. I'll jump through a couple spots to give you an idea of some of the understanding of this to help frame a picture of why this could be worthwhile purchase for you and how it might help with your mental positioning. So this is from book 3 of this book 3, The Professional Mindset. Chapter is called Play Hurt. The amateur believes that she must have all her ducks in a row before she can launch her startup, or compose her symphony, or design her iPhone app. The professional knows better. Has your husband just walked out on you? Has your El Dorado been repossessed? Keep writing, keep composing, keep shooting film. Athletes play hurt. Warriors fight scared. The professional takes 2 aspirin and keeps on trucking. Again, if this is what you do it. You just do it because it's what you do. There's not really anything that gets in the way. And what gets in the way is a legitimate inability to continue. You just can't. That's a certain type of mindset, and it is in the chapter called Professional Mindset. But the idea there is that you have things that you are supposed to be doing when it comes to your creative work. And no one else can tell you that. And this is the hard part, is no one can look at you and say you're not doing enough, because only you know when you've hit that. Now, as a creative person and someone who has studied this guy's books a bit and studied that route of philosophy for creative work, and it's one that I highly ascribe to, which is the creative people and artists are good because they work for it. They're not just lazy and sitting around until they're struck by inspiration. Now, struck by inspiration and motivation, I think you should act on that anytime it happens because that's a huge burst of energy. But what makes you a professional creative or a professional artist is the fact that you do that all the time. That's the philosophy that I ascribe to, not this like I'm waiting to be inspired. And that might mean sitting in front of a computer screen for that whole 3 hour or 90-minute period, not writing anything. You're just staring at it, but you show up to do that work. The work's not coming, but you're trying, or you make an edit, make an edit, make an edit. If you're a songwriter, you write songs and you're going to throw away probably way more than you use. If I'm not mistaken, Prince, um, before his passing, of course, supposedly woke up every morning and wrote a song to start his day. So potentially there's this catalog of potentially thousands of songs that he wrote. I don't know what he did, or if he saved them, or if he even recorded them, or if he just kind of sat and wrote. But he would start his day by writing a song. I have heard that before a couple times and it's not as corroborated as I want. So my apologies if that info is a little wrong, but the idea there is he's an artist and he does art. Um, I think in the previous video, I gave an example of Neil Gaiman, who's in hot water right now. So like I said in that one, I hesitate to say anything encouraging about him, but I actually attributed a quote to him that I think is more attributed to, um, it might be Faulkner. I looked it up and I don't actually find this quote attributed to anyone. It sounds like one that just certain authors and creatives have taken on for themselves, with the idea of inspiration just happens to strike me at 9 a.m. every morning. So that's the idea of putting yourself in that environment. And if you force yourself into an environment of creativity, your brain will eventually start to be useful to you. I have not tried this, but I've heard some professionals talk about this, like using sleep. What is it, like restrictive sleep, when you're trying to get on a sleep schedule or you struggle to actually fall asleep, which is make your sleep window only like 5 hours, which is for most people going to be severely underslept. But what that does is it teaches your brain to actually take advantage of that time because it knows this only works if you actually get up after 5 hours. But like you're not allowed to go to bed till midnight and you can't get up till 5 a.m. Or you have to get up at 5 a.m. rather. And your brain will start to learn that it needs to heavily utilize that time for sleep because it's all it's going to get. And then once that gets taken care of, you start to add time back in. So you still get up at 5. So you need to pick the starting time that you're up. And then you go to bed 15 minutes earlier. And that you'll get more efficient sleep because your brain knows when you go to bed, we got to pass out now and get up because he's going to get us up or she's going to get us up right at this time. So that's something I'd want to research more on because I feel like it could be very dangerous. You're putting yourself into sleep deprivation for probably a few weeks or months to make that work. So don't just go do that because I said it. But the idea there is when we put ourselves into hard environments, our brain is a very lazy organ. It's our mind is much more complex in my opinion, but the brain is just lazy. It's taking the easiest route. It's going to do whatever is easiest. It is like water. It follows the path of least resistance. So if you're doing something that you don't want to do, your brain's like, hey, why don't we just go do this thing? And then you'll say, oh, okay, yeah. It's like disciplining a child. You can't give in to a tantrum. You can't let your child control you. In the same way, you can't let your brain control you. You have to be in charge. There's a great quote. Um, I think it's from one of the Greek philosophers, but they essentially say, I train my body so that my mind remembers who's in charge. Because you're going to have parts of yourself that just want to do something different. But you and what makes you is not your body and your brain. There's this extra thing. For a lot of people, that is the spiritual element of being a person. It's the soul, or that's the deeper aspect of self that doesn't always agree with what our body and our brain is telling us to do. And that's the part that we give attention to if we want to make notable change. So if you want to be creative, force yourself to be creative and take away any opportunity you can to back out of that. I believe Victor Hugo, I think for a season required, he had a servant and he told the servant to keep his room locked and to not allow the fireplace to go. So his room would be very cold in the morning and the door would be locked. And his servant wasn't allowed to unlock the door until Hugo put, I believe, 3 manuscript pages under the door showing that he wrote that morning. And then the door was unlocked and the fire was started again. So you don't have to be this extreme, but the idea is if you are designed for something, why wouldn't you eliminate everything that gets in the way of you being the thing that you're made for? So, and that is the idea of I'm nature's greatest miracle. There's something you're made for, and there's something that you're supposed to do. So go do that. And when you're creative, be professional and show up. So I'm going to end it there. I could quote this for hours. I recommend this book highly if you're a creative person. If you're into the arts at all, I recommend it heavily. So, yeah. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Go read it. If you end up reading it or if you've already read it, please give me your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear any comments about it, and I will absolutely engage in conversation to the best of my ability with it because I think it's a very good book, and I don't meet a lot of people who have read it, so I encourage it. Other than that, I'm just looking forward to the next one. I will do the book that comes before this, technically, The War of Art. That one, we'll do a deep dive into that as well. Probably in the next couple weeks or so, but who knows? I'm learning to stop saying that because my timelines are never what I think they're going to be. So, anyway, check the book out and give me your thoughts. And again, if this is useful or helpful, like, subscribe, share it with people. I appreciate all the input and support and dialogue. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.